Warning: contains potential spoilers for The Lord of the Rings. The Rings of Power. Middle-earth's greatest villain, Sauron, is the primary antagonist in Lord of the Rings. The Rings of Power, but the Dark Lord has several other names he goes by. Sauron is best known as the Big Bad of The Lord of the Rings, where he sought after the One Ring that Frodo Baggins and the Fellowship wanted to destroy. Set thousands of years before Peter Jackson's trilogy, The Rings of Power follows Sauron's rise and how he forged the Great Rings. In J.R.R. Tolkien's source material, Sauron is one of the oldest beings in Middle-earth and went under different guises during the thousands of years he was alive. Using his powers as a Maya, Sauron was able to shape-shift, which enabled him to deceive others and take on different names. His most famous name, Sauron, comes from the Elvish language Quenya and translates to the abhorred. With Sauron set to play a large role in the Rings of Powers, it is likely that some of his other aliases will appear. Sauron's original name was Meren, meaning the Admirable. Meren was obsessed with order, which later became his motivation for wanting to control Middle-earth, and he admired Melkor, who later became the first Dark Lord Morgoth, because of his great power. Soon, Meren became Morgoth's most trusted servant, and he started to go by the names Sauron and Gorthor, meaning dread in the Sindarin language. What names Sauron can use in the Rings of Power if the Rings of Power follows J.R.R. Tolkien's story, then Sauron will appear in the form of Annatar, the Lord of Gifts. As Annatar, Sauron transforms himself into a fair form in an attempt to seduce the elves by looking similar to them. Annatar befriends the elven smiths in a region led by Celebrimbor, but is not welcomed by other elves like Elrond and Gil-galad, who did not trust Annatar but did not suspect him to be Sauron in disguise. With Celebrimbor and the smiths, Annatar forges the Rings of Power and secretly creates the One Ring in the hope of controlling the elves, dwarves, and men. Sauron's attempt at controlling Middle-earth with the rings was thwarted by the elves, who hid their 3 rings, and the Númenóreans, who sent their huge army to defeat the Dark Lord. Eventually, Sauron surrendered to the Númenóreans and was their prisoner, but using his cunning he quickly became an advisor to the king. On Númenor, Sauron is known as Ziggur, meaning sorcerer, and he used his position to convert many Númenóreans to the darkness. The Rings of Power will show Sauron corrupt the king of Númenor and convince him to attack Valinor, which ends with Númenor being destroyed in the Second Age and the death of Sauron's physical form, though his spirit survives, which leads to the events of The Lord of the Rings.